important we hear the questions as well as the answer. I'd like to thank the Office of the Dean of Students for co-sponsoring this event. We acknowledge that and we're very, very grateful for their support. This event is entitled From Generation to Generation, and it is truly a family affair. We also welcome Rachel, one of Mr. Middleberg's granddaughters, to campus today, and Rachel's sister, Jessica. And it is through Jessica that this whole relationship with Wilson College evolved. And we really appreciate her leadership on that, and how appropriate that I invite Jessica to introduce her grandfather. Jessica.
Very amazing family. And so it is my honor to share with you my grandfather, my side, Charles Middleberg.
Thank you very much. The best way that I can tell my story is to start with a little bit of world history. First of all, let me try to tell you that my name is Charles Middleberg. In 1939, I lived with my mom, my dad, and a younger brother, 4 years younger than me, in Paris, France. We were a French citizen. My father was a watchmaker. He was the breadwinner. My mom didn't work outside the home. She had enough to take care of 2 wild boys. We had a very simple working class family life. We had a huge family. My mother had 2 brothers. They were married. I had little girl cousins. My father had a slew of cousins all over the city of Paris. It was a peaceful way to live, okay? Everybody worked, everybody lived peacefully. I don't remember anybody ever being involved in the law. And then all of a sudden, in September of 1939, France decided to go to war against Germany. And the reason they went to war against Germany is because they had an alliance from World War I with Poland. A mutual alliance. If one gets attacked, gets invaded, the other one will come to the rescue. And that was a very silly notion, because if you look at the map of Europe, you will find that Poland is at the far east end of Europe, and France is at the far west end of Europe, and Germany is in the middle. Germany just invaded Poland. So the French felt obligated to declare war on Germany. Well, everybody knew there was going to be a war, except that the French authorities fell asleep at the wheel. They didn't prepare themselves. I'm sorry. Anyway, they decided to go to war, and they were no match to this mighty force that the Germans had put together. And it was just one of those things. They started the war, and within a few months, the German military just invaded the country. And there was this French Maréchal Pétain, who was a hero of World War I, noticing that, how incompetent the French government was, he took it upon himself to surrender. He said, okay, no more bombing, no more killing, that's it. We lost, we win, that's it. We're done. Well, shortly after that, there was a German general who was named, and he was going to run the country of France. So he set himself up in one of the luxury hotels of the city his staff, and within a few months, everything was settled down. He started issuing new rules. And the rules were primarily directed to the Jewish population. And we, as a child, I was a 9-year-old child at the time, it didn't really mean anything to me, but it meant an awful lot to my parents and my family. Why were they directing the rules towards the Jews? But then we soon found out that that's exactly what they were doing to every country that they conquered. If they conquered Austria, Czechoslovakia, Poland, Hungary, whatever, the minute they conquered one of the countries of Europe, immediately they set up rules concerning the Jewish population of that country. So, rule number 1, all adults are to go to City Hall, have their ID document stamped in great big red letters, Jew. Big deal. So, if you show your ID, it shows that you're a Jew. So what? Well, a little time goes by. Next rule. Jews are no longer allowed to be in business. You have a business, sell it, give it away, and you have a certain amount of time to do it. If you're not going to do it, it makes no difference. It's going to be confiscated. A little time goes by. New rule. Jews are not allowed to travel. You live in the city of Paris, that's where you stay. Don't even bother asking permission to go anyplace else. It will not be granted. Then came a rule about children. Jewish children were no longer allowed to go to school. Well, it didn't affect my little brother because he was 4 years younger than me, but it certainly affected me. 9-year-old boy, no more school. And then, took a little while, they had to be sure that the Jews were identified. So, the next rule is, every man, woman, and child must wear on their outside garment a yellow 6-pointed star, and it cannot be just pinned on the garment. It must be sewn on so that you cannot take it off at leisure. And I'm sure that you know the kind of a star I'm referring to, the 6-pointed star, which is usually called the Star of David. And Jews are usually identified with this yellow star. And kind of redundant, in the middle of the star, in black letter, it would say Jew. Now, one of the disadvantages of this yellow star is that you would walk down the street and immediately you were recognized as being Jewish. I don't think anybody found it to be insulting, but the point was that why are we being distinguished from any other people? One of the problems with wearing the star is that the war didn't end when the Germans invaded France. They still had ideas that they were going to conquer the rest of Europe, especially they were going to invade England and so on. So the war continued. And as the war continued, food became scarce in France because all the food was being requisitioned to feed the German military. So all of a sudden we hear there was a shipment of milk that just came to the local grocery store. Understand there were no supermarkets then. So everybody would rush to the store, stand in line, wait your turn, and with the yellow star, you went to the back of the line. Well, by the time it was your turn to get into the store, all the milk was gone. And again, the same thing kind of repeated itself, whether it was at the butcher shop, at the bakery. Life became very, very difficult for Jewish people. In February of 1941, my dad gets a summons in the mail. And the summons reads, you are to present yourself in front of City Hall at such and such day, such and such time. Bring a change of clothes. You will be working for the German military. If you don't show up and we will get you, the punishment will be very severe. Now, for the first time we heard that severe punishment. My dad wasn't going to take any chances, packed up a little suitcase with a change of clothes, and what they specified went in for the city hall. When he gets there, turns out that 9,000 Jewish men had been summoned same day, same time in front of City Hall. He took all 9,000 men, put them in buses, and they bused them about 120 miles south of the city of Paris into a camp. Now, my mom would get in the mail a green postcard. And with the postcard, remember Jews are not allowed to travel, but with the green postcard, she was allowed to take the train to go visit my dad once a month. And I remember the first time we went to see my dad, she said, "You're a watchmaker. What kind of work do you do for the German military?" And my dad says, "We don't do anything. I don't know what I'm doing here. We're totally idle. We're bored out of our gourd. One day they'll take a few hundred guys, take them out into a field, have them dig a ditch, and then a few days later they'll take another few hundred guys back into the same field and fill the ditch. They have nothing for us to do." And he says, "If you look around, you'll see there's not even a German soldier guarding the camp. It's still the French gendarmes. I don't understand. What is it that we're doing in this camp?" But this went on for several months. Now we're in August of 1941. No postcard. September, no postcard. That means we cannot go see my dad. Something has happened, and we soon found out what happened. They had emptied the camp, put the 9,000 men into cattle cars, and shipped them to destinations unknown. We had absolutely no idea where in the world did they ship all these men. First the thought was into factories in Germany, or some other place to go to work for the military. But we had no idea, actually, where did they ship all these men. Now life became increasingly more and more difficult for Jewish people to live. The French police, together with some German soldiers, would burst into a Jewish home and grab whoever was there. Men, women, children made no difference. They had built two small camps right outside of the city of Paris, Drancy, Bonne-Marolan, and they would take the people and put them in those camps and started separating the men from the women, from the children. And as the camps would get filled up, and there was no more room for additional people to put in there, they would empty the camps, put the people into, again, those cattle cars, and ship them. We had no idea where people were being shipped, where the train wanted out. It became more and more difficult to live and try to hide away from getting caught because you never knew what was going to happen. In July of 1942, my mom heard a very strong rumor. There were always rumors, but this time she heard a very strong rumor that there was been a deal made between the French authorities and the German authorities that a specific night there was going to be a massive raid throughout the whole city of Paris, and they were going to pick up as many Jewish people, families, men, women, and children as they can put their hands on. Now, let me give you a little picture of Paris. I'm sure that some of you have already visited the city of Paris. But Paris is more like New York. People don't live in in private homes like we do here. People live in tall apartment buildings. It just so happened that we happen to live in a building that was 7 stories high, and we live on the 5th floor. There was no elevators in that building. There was all wooden floors, wooden steps to go from the from floor to floor. And the building had, like all buildings, had a janitor. The janitor happened to be a veteran of World War I, and he hated the Germans with a passion. During that war, he got hurt and he lost a leg, and he was wearing like a peg leg. He looked like a broomstick. So my mom really had no recourse to go to her brothers, to go to the cousins. She went to the janitor and said, I heard this rumor, and it looks like it's on the level. I don't know what to do. So the janitor thought it for a while and said, I have an idea. Come with me. He took us all the way up to the top floor, to the 7th floor. And when we got there, he opened up the door to a room, and in there was all kinds of tools, and it looked like these were the tools for the maintenance people to keep the building in good order. And then he showed us in that little room, there was a trap door, that if you open the trap door and you would pull down this rope ladder, that was how you get access under the roof. And apparently this is the way the maintenance people would get to work on the roof. He says, listen, what my idea is. If and when they come for you, I'm going to manage to come out with them. I'm going to take the rubber tip from the bottom of my peg leg. And we're going to, as we come up the steps, I'm going to keep on banging my peg leg against the wooden steps. When you hear that noise, get out of the apartment, come up here, open up the trap door, climb there under the roof, close the trap door, they'll never find you. Well, lo and behold, the night of July 16th, we heard a banging in the steps. My little brother, my mom and I, we went out of the apartment, up the 2 flights of steps, into the little room, opened up the trap door, climbed there, he showed us how to do it, closed the trap door, and we just laid. It was July, it was hot. We lay there until about noontime. When at noontime, my mom whispers to me, you can't stay here forever. Tell you what, I'm going to give you some money. You go down and go get a baguette, French bread. I said, Mom, are you kidding? You want me? Now understand, this is 1942, I'm 12 years old. I said, you want me to go down? I'm scared. What happens if they take me? So my mom says, I really don't think they would bother a little kid. And I just happened, when I was 12 years old, I was kind of skinny, small. So she kept insisting. I took the money, believe me, reluctantly. I took the money. I climbed out of that hiding place. When I get down to the 5th floor where our apartment is, the door to the apartment is wide open. There's a German soldier standing there. I just ran past him all the way down to the street level. When I get to the street, incredible mayhem. They were pulling people out of the buildings, and men, women, children screaming, crying, unbelievable, and pushing them into trucks and carting them away. The bakery is a couple doors away from our building. I go to the bakery, and when I walk into the bakery, the woman there, she knew me because I always came to buy bread. Now, in France, you don't help yourself in the bakery. You tell the attendant what you want, and then they have the racks in the back of the counter. She never asked me what I wanted. She automatically just turned around, picked up a baguette, handed it to me, never asked me for money, never asked me for the coupon. He needed coupons to buy food. I took the baguette back into our building. In all this chaos, I managed to get back on the sidewalk to the building. Nobody stopped me, nobody touched me. I got in the building. When I got into the 5th floor, I was kind of, being funny, and I got a baguette, showing to the German soldier. Went up to 2 flights, rejoined my mom and my brother, and I told my mom what I saw. So we ate the bread, and we lay there some more. We lay there until dark. When it got dark, my mom says, let's try it again. Well, now, I'm a lot braver. Nothing happened to me the first time. I'm not afraid to go anymore. So I take the money and I go down. When I get to the 5th floor, our apartment, the door is still wide open, but there's no soldier there anymore. When I got out to the street, totally deserted. Not a soul. I never bothered to take a look if the bakery was still open. Chances are it was not. I came right back up and I told my mom, looks like all is in the clear. There's not a soul anywhere. So the 3 of us came down to our apartment. My mom had to be the smartest, brightest woman that ever lived. She had foreseen that there was going to be a time like that. And like I mentioned before, we were just a working class family. And she felt that she had to save, preserve what she felt was her most precious possessions. We all have the same thing. If there is a fire in your house, in your home, you're going to grab the things that you feel is the most important things that you want to save in case. So she had this big trunk, and she had put in the trunk what she felt was her most precious possessions. So what were her most precious possessions? Her best down comforter, her best tablecloth, napkins, silverware, jewelry, pictures, portraits. She had filled up that trunk with all these things. And then we knew where there were storage areas on the ground floor. So we dragged the trunk all the way down to the street level. And then the janitor pointed to one particular storage place and he says, Mrs. Middleberg, you put your trunk right there. You'll see we're going to chase the Germans just like we did in World War I. And when they're out of here, you come back and all your stuff will be right there. Now there was no question, so the 3 of us to go back into our apartment. Because they missed us the first time, they're going to come again. They're going to be looking for all those that they missed the first time in that huge raid. So there was a few days we just slept in doorways. We ate the best way we could. Believe me, there was no fun at that time. And then my mom tells my little brother and me, she says, I know this lady, this Gentile lady, who takes small children out of the city of Paris and places them in the countryside. I would like both of you to go with me. You can easily see that my little brother and I immediately objected. Well, what about you? She said, you don't understand. Myself, I'll be able to move around a lot easier than with both of you. In the meantime, you two will be safe someplace on the farm. Well, there was no argument. We met with this lady. Now, there was no way my mother could come to the train station to see us off because the train stations were loaded with the police and German military. We just kissed my mom goodbye and we went with this lady. On the way to the train, the lady says, now listen carefully what I'm going to tell you. From this moment on, I don't want to hear anything about mentioning Jewish, okay? First of all, off with the start. If we are stopped, you let me do the talking. However, if they insist of questioning you, all you have to say, Mom and Dad got killed in a bombing of Paris, and you two managed to survive. I'm your Aunt Louise, and I'm taking you to Grandma to the farm. That's it. Well, as it turned out, we got to the train. Nobody had stopped us. We rode on the train for several hours. And when we got off the train, right there was a man with a horse and buggy. So apparently, that had been prearranged. We took whatever little luggage we had with us, got on the carriage, and he took us to his farm. Turned out to be a small goat farm. When we got there, these were older people. This lady that waited for us at the farm, she was all smiles and she made us so welcome. She had prepared a table full of food and drink, and she didn't know what to do to make us feel welcome and comfortable. Of course, my little brother and I, we were really very tired. And shortly after we ate, she showed us our room, and we went to sleep. When we woke up in the morning, and the lady who took us in the train, she's gone. She left. And this was summertime, no school yet, so we got to be friendly with some of the kids in the village. And everything seemed to be just fine. Those two people at the farm, they didn't know what to do to make us feel good. I said they were older people, but understand, I'm 12 years old. To me, anybody over 35 is old. So, how old were they really? I don't know. And we were there for several weeks. All of a sudden, the lady who took us in the train, she's back. She takes me aside and she hands me a letter. I don't know why, but I felt the minute she handed me the letter, this is not good news. I opened up the letter, and inside the letter, I find a ring. And I recognize it's one of my mom's rings. I open up the letter. And the letter reads, I am sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but I witnessed your mom being taken away in a raid. She got caught in a raid. But she had time enough to jump down high and get in touch with the lady that took you out on the train. So here's what I'm suggesting to you. If you're okay where you are, if you're fine and you're contented, I promise your mom that I will keep in touch with you all the time. I won't forget you, and I will keep my promise. However, if you want to come back to the city of Paris, I'll arrange with the lady that took you to the farm to bring you back, and you'll be staying with me. I'm a 12-year-old kid with an 8-year-old brother. Do I stay here on the farm? My mom really has no idea where we are. And I know she's smart. She's going to escape, okay? Because she's so smart, because she's going to find a way to escape. And when she escapes, she's going to need my brother and me, because we're going to help her, to run away in some place where we won't be able to get caught, okay? So I decided I want to go back to the city. If I have a choice, I want to go back to the city. So the people at the phone, the couple at the phone, we couldn't figure out, why do I want to go back to the city? The parents are dead. So this lady that took us on the train, she said, well, their Aunt Susan found out that they're here, and she decided that it may be best if she takes care of the kids. She came out of the store. And so we said goodbye to the couple at the front, and we went back to the seat. When we got there, the lady who wrote the letter, turns out that she's married. She has a husband and 2 kids. The girl, about 4 years older than me, and the boy, 2 years younger than me. And she owns this cafe, restaurant, which didn't say so in the letter. After we were there for a couple of days, she takes me aside and she says, I know what I wrote in the letter, but you're the one who made the decision. And she said, I didn't expect you to do that. I thought that you were fine where you were on the farm, but that's okay. You decided to come back. But as you can see, first, I have a family of my own. 2, I have a business to run. Well, I really don't have time for you 2 guys. So from now on, your little brother, it's your responsibility. You make sure that he gets up in the morning, he gets washed, he gets dressed, he gets fed. You have to take care of your little brother. Now, listen carefully what I'm going to tell you now. I know the principal of the elementary school. I'm not going to have any problem getting your brother into school. No questions will be asked. But you're ready to go to middle school. You're going to have to go there and have you registered at the middle school. And they're going to ask all kind of questions about you. Your name, your parents' names, where do you live. They're going to ask all kinds of questions. She says, we cannot afford that. You 2 have to be as invisible as possible. So, your little brother is going to go to school, but for you, you're going to be working right here. No school for you. I realized that I made the decision to come back. And maybe it was not such a good idea, the idea for me to come back. But the point was that I was still sure that my mom was going to escape. So I had to live with whatever decision I made. It didn't take very long after that to understand this woman meant really well. But what she did is that she put her family in tremendous jeopardy. Because if all of a sudden somebody would, especially that she has this restaurant, this bar, where people come and go all the time to drink and eat. If someone would point out that there's a couple of boys there that they never saw here before, and they point a finger on us, chances are either the German authorities or the French authorities will be coming in. And if they start asking questions and find out who we are, not only would they take my brother and me away, but her whole family would be carted away and would wind up in one of those camps. So she had to try to find a way to protect her family. French people at that time were, I would say, 80% Roman Catholic. So there's a church in every neighborhood. So she decided to go see the local priest. And she's trying to tell him, Father, I don't know, please understand, I find myself with 2 little kids. They tell me that they're orphans, that their parents got killed in the bombing. I really don't know where they come from, but I'm not even sure that they're Christians. But the priest understood what she was driving at. So, bring the books. So we went to the church. When we got there, kindly old man. And he spoke with my little brother and me. And he said, I want you here back Friday. So the 2 of us came back to the church on Friday, and he baptized us. I guess after he questioned us the first time, we realized that we were not Catholic boys. So So he baptized us. And as soon as we were baptized, he takes me aside and he says, you know what just happened here? From this moment on, you two are little Catholic boys. And you know what that means? That means there's a lot of responsibility to be a Catholic boy. Okay? Now, responsibility number one, I want you in this church without fail every Sunday morning for Mass. No excuses, no other reasons that you cannot come. Every Sunday morning you must be here for Mass. And all of a sudden there will be other parishioners. We're going to see two little boys, attending Mass. All you have to say, Mom and Dad are dead. They died in a bombing. They'll feel sorry for you, they'll leave you alone. You're ready for catechism. Well, I want you to go for catechism. And when the nun says, you're okay, you're fine now, you'll have Holy Communion, you'll become an altar boy, you'll serve Mass. I want you to be the most observant little Catholic boys in the parish. And believe me, that's exactly what happened to my little brother and me. We were the most observant. We followed all the rights and regulations of being Catholic little boys. We lived that way until the Allied armies liberated the city of Paris in August of 1944. I thought, of course, everybody was in incredible elation throughout the whole city. Everybody was in a tremendous, joyful mood, and people were singing and dancing and drinking, and it was such a joyous occasion. And as far as my little brother and I, we were sure that that's it, the war is over. Mom and Dad are coming back, we're going to get back together. Well, I was wrong on two fronts. One, the war was not over because the city of Paris was liberated. The Germans kept on fighting, and it wasn't until months later they finally surrendered and stopped. The war ended. My dad was one of the miracles of this incredible time. Exactly a year after the liberation of Paris, in August of 1945, my little brother and I were reunited with my dad. The day we kissed my mom goodbye, we were taken to the farm in the countryside. That was the last time we ever saw my mom. She did not make it. She never came back. I tell my story. I never was in a concentration camp. I was not one of those victims that wind up in a concentration camp. But what happened to me was all part of this horrible, incredible time. And the reason I tell my story, I've been doing this now for almost 17 years. And in Pennsylvania it isn't so, but I live in New Jersey. And in the state of New Jersey, it is mandatory for school children to learn about the Holocaust. And I am part of a group of about 18, 19 survivors. And we go to all different schools, all kinds of venues, colleges, churches, anyone who wants to hear our story. And the reason I'm doing it is because there are people that say, it never happened. It's a myth. It's a myth. If it's a myth, you have a myth standing in front of you. I would love to have somebody in my face tell me it never happened. Tell me what happened to my mom. my dad, my uncles and aunts and cousins and the whole family. Because when everything was done and over with, and we tried to find out what happened to this huge family that lived so peacefully, the only survivors were my father, my brother, one of my father's cousins, and me. 4 people out of this entire family survived. What happened to all the others? Tell me that this didn't happen. Bring me back my mom. That is the main reason I tell my story. But I do speak in front of children, school children, and I do tell them that the other reasons that I tell my story is because I owe eternal gratitude to righteous people who saved my brother and me. These people, I owe eternal gratitude. I could never forget them. And I have to mention them. And I have to say their names and keep mentioning over and over again how grateful I am for them. The janitor who showed us where to hide, the lady who took us out to the country and brought us back, the family who sheltered us for 3 years, the priest, when they found out the priest falsified the documents of conversion, all these people would have been taken away and would have been victims just like the Jews. To these people, I must show my gratitude. When I talk to children, whether it is 12-year-old children, 18-year-old children, when I talk to people in college, I keep telling them, don't let yourself be talked into any form of hatred. Hatred is the worst thing. My mom, my wife, may she rest in peace, what she would always, because as long as she was alive, she was doing the same thing I'm doing. And she would say, hate is the worst word in any language, because hate only brings harm. No one has been able to tell me what else does hate bring. Whether you hate because a person is of different color, or of different size, or different religion, it doesn't matter. The idea was that the person that you hate, you want to harm that person. And I tell the kids, don't let it happen to you. Because ultimately, you're going to wind up doing things that you're going to be sorry that you did. Tolerance is what I teach you. Tolerance, because it doesn't matter if we're fat, skinny, tall, short, it doesn't matter. We're all part of the same human race. And that's what I think. I will stay as long as I'm allowed to, and I will answer whatever questions that you may have, and I'll be glad to. Yes.
What was your mother before?
What was my mother's?
I'm going to ask people who are asking questions if you're okay to use the mic. Wait, are you okay with that, or I can repeat the question if you like.
Where was your mother before?
Okay. I'd like to answer that question this way. It took us years to try to find out what did happen to my mom. We had no, because my dad at one time, he felt that maybe she's one of those people totally disoriented because of malnutrition, because of hard labor, whatever it was. There were people that worked in those concentration camps that didn't even remember where they came from. So there was those, we call the DP camps, the displaced person camps. And the American authorities were trying to find out where did these people come from so they could put them back in their own country. My dad was convinced that she was still alive, and where could she possibly be? But it turned out that she did not survive. And it's only a couple years after the war was over that this man by the name of Holcaust, he compiled this book. And as you can see, it's in bad shape. I've been using it every time I go to speak. And finally, he compiled this book from the Nazi records. They kept incredible, accurate records, as if they were proud of what they were doing. Okay? And from those records, I finally found what happened to my mom. Until then, we had no way of knowing. And so, here, I see on convoy number 27 of 2 September 1942, it tells the story about that convoy. How many people were in that convoy? What happened to the people in that convoy? Who are the people that actually survived the trip? Because it was like from France to Birkenau in Poland. A long, long ride. And that's where my mom was taken to Birkenau. And alphabetically listed, I finally found my mom. None of the people on that convoy survived. That convoy went to Birkenau. They never made the camp. As they were coming off the train, they went directly to the gas chamber. Yes. I am sure that I am not competent for that, okay? There was an awful lot of horrible mistakes that were made, okay? And this is preceding the war. Everybody knew, the English knew, the French knew. We even had people like Chamberlain, who was the Prime Minister of England, that went to meet with Hitler, shook his hand, okay, and came back and said, peace in our time, because he figured that if they give the Germans the Sudetenland, they will be satisfied because they needed Lebensraum, places to extend their life, okay, Lebensraum. And he came back and he says, okay, we gave them the Sudetenland, now it's going to be peace in our time. He was such an idiot, because Hitler just fooled him. He shook hands, he came back and said, but in the meantime, Hitler kept on building this tremendous military might. And there was no way there was going to be any other European country, like, I don't care which one, whether it was England or France or Poland that could match the military might that Hitler built. It's unfortunate that it was poor politics. Yes, sir.
I'd like to object a little. What church do you go to today, sir?
You want me to name the church? Well, it's called Bethel. It is not quite a church, but I have to explain. A year after the war was over, the Archbishop of Paris, right, who was born a Jew, the Archbishop of Paris and the Grand Rabbi of Paris, they got together and issued a joint proclamation. And what the proclamation read is that, okay, you converted to Catholicism for whatever reason. You saved your life or you decided to to become a Catholic, it's all good and fine. You're Catholics. There's nothing for you to do anymore. However, if you want to go back to Judaism, you don't have to reconvert again. We will erase it from the records as if it never happened. Just go back to your local temple, to your local synagogue. Well, I've mentioned Bethel. Well, Bethel is the one that I have here in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. We actually went back to our temple in Paris.
Where in New Jersey, sir?
Cherry Hill.
I belong to a wonderful organization called Jewish Voices for Peace. I hope all you do. But you didn't mention Palestine. I'd like to point out, and I wish you would too, that the Palestinians had absolutely nothing to do with the Holocaust. Nothing. And yet they are paying the price. Because many Palestinians have been driven from their homes. Gaza, I was in Gaza. The West Bank, and I think that we should keep that in mind. The Palestinians had nothing to do with the Holocaust, and they've been driven from their homes.
Man, we didn't come to listen to
I would
you.
like you to comment on what you're doing to help the Palestinians.
I have to answer your question directly. What am I doing to help the Palestinians? Absolutely nothing. And I'm being honest. I don't think that what I'm talking about, when I go to schools, and when I go to different venues, and I talk about what happened during the Holocaust, I find that there's absolutely, in my point of view, and I may be totally wrong, understand, I've been wrong to many things in my life, but I don't feel that the Holocaust has anything to do with what happened with the decision by the United Nations to partition a part of this area of the world, to separate it and give a portion to Israel. That is a political thing that has happened many years after the war was over. And now this is another situation that, as far as I'm concerned, has no relationship with the Holocaust itself. When I talk about the Holocaust, I'm talking about the murdering of 6 million Jews and 4 million non-Jews. That's what I am referring to. The political end of it between Israel and the Palestinian is a totally different thing, and I don't think it has any relationship together.
Because it's brutalizing other people.
So I have a question. I'm Roman Catholic with French descent. Thank God people have to survive. But what was the reaction of your friends and neighbors when this discrimination first began? I just can't imagine. Obviously, there were sympathizers that eventually service, but the people who knew day to day saw this discrimination began when you were identified and then you started to be kept from getting your food, so forth. What was the general reaction of your friends and neighbors about this?
I must answer this in all honesty. I mean, in all frankness and honesty. I think the French at that time became very cowards. They, a great majority, were collaborating. They were fine. They didn't. There were a few righteous people. There were a number of righteous people who said, "This is wrong. What's happening?" Okay, but most of the general population said, "Okay, so we lost the war. Big deal. Who cares about the Jews? Who cares about the blacks? Who cares about those?"
They became self-centered, just concerned about their own welfare.
Right. As long as it didn't touch the... Now, I will tell you what took place. What did take place is that let's say there were some French people, nothing Jewish, that went underground, became what was called resistance. Okay? Well, these people, mostly they were young people. And what was happening is that they would kill a German soldier, they would kill a German officer. And the Germans, to retaliate, they would grab 10, 20 men off the street and put them in a prison, and then issue a proclamation. There's 10 days for those culprits who just killed this particular German soldier to present himself, herself. And if you don't present yourself, those 20 people we just picked up will be shot. Guess what? The person who did the killing of the German soldier, he wouldn't, or she wouldn't come forward. And guess what? The German executed those 20 men that he picked off the street. Okay? And this kept on repeating itself until finally it started hitting home. And then when it started hitting home after a number of years, the French would suddenly realize that the Germans are the conquerors. They're not here as your friends. They're not here just to rid your country of the Jews or the blacks or whatever else it was. But as long as, until then, they were cooperating. So okay, fine, who cares if they did the Jews? Who cares if they did the handicapped? Who cares if they did anything else? They were really, I'm sorry to say that because I always loved French and I still do. But they were really cowards.
Several times we watched the film, the documentary on the village was Rome. Were you anywhere near that when you were talking?
No, sir. No, sir. Even when I went back on the farm, it was nowhere near. I was in a little tiny village called Ivry, which is on the Loire Valley. So it was nowhere near that particular village I was talking about.
Middleberg. My name is Joe Fuller. I was wondering if did you know Anne Frank?
Anne Frank, only by what I read from her, because she was in Holland, and of course we had no relationship at that time.
What's that to say? All humanity. We're so sorry. We're so sorry the way your race and religion was treated. It was inhumane and unchristian. We're so sorry. Please forgive us. Please.
I really appreciate what you said, but I want to point one thing out, okay, is that I cannot blame Christianity or religion, because the righteous people that saved my brother and me, they were all Christians. They were not Jews. So, if anything, I value the time that I spent as being a Roman Catholic boy.
Charles, it's me again. Please call me Russ. First of all, I probably just one thing to and I feel like I and I learned last year at the memorial the resumes, you know who they are, the friends they know watch out for the guy who doesn't know.
That's the word.
And it's not ungrateful, it's unhuman. You have my admiration.
Thank you.
I was just wondering if you ever went back to look for the chocolate and
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't have my mother's comforter. I don't have my mother's tablecloth and silverware or anything like that. But what I do have are all the pictures, family history. I'm sorry. The portraits, they're hanging in my home. My parents' wedding portraits, my grandparents' portraits, okay? What I do is since I go to the schools, I bring only one little picture. And this is the original frame. This was in the trunk, okay? And in that picture, I picked this one because there's my mother, my father, my little brother, and me. And I must have been about 8 years old in that picture, okay? You're more than welcome to look at it, okay? Whenever I'm done. But yes, absolutely. I do have that trunk, and I treasure the trunk. And I'll have to, I guess, one of these days I'm going to be buried with that trunk.
I'm what you call a Jew by choice. I converted to Judaism much later. I was born in Paris. I'm Catholic. And my parents, during the Holocaust, saved 3 Jewish families. One of them was arrested and was sent to I don't know. But the other 2, thanks to my parents, survived. We hid them in small villages in France, and they survived. And so I'm very proud of my parents. And when I met my husband later on, who was Jewish, I converted to Judaism, and I'm very happy to be Jewish now, but I'm very proud of my parents and what they did to save those people who were otherwise have been taken by the Germans.
Absolutely. I totally agree. That I have a tremendous respect for not just the people that saved my life, but all those who stood up and took the risk of their own life. They risked their own life to save other Jews. I know that there's one particular woman that is also a survivor, and she also goes to schools in New Jersey. And she was a child survivor, and the reason that she's a survivor is because there were some Christian families who saved her and her family, her mother and father.
Thank you for coming and speaking to us. I wonder if this could have the letters ring?
Yes, very good question. That ring is still, well, I have it indirectly because I gave it to one of my daughters. So one of my daughters is wearing it. Aunt Lynn. She's the one who's
Is it here now?
I'm sorry?
Is it here today?
Oh, no. It's my daughter. No, these are my granddaughters. My daughter, she didn't come with me.
It was wonderful hearing you speak. Thank you so much. I have 2 questions. Where did you meet your wife? And what brought you to America?
Thank you. Okay. If you don't mind, I'm going to explain. Okay. When the war was over, an American philanthropic organization called the ORT, O-R-T, they took it upon themselves to build a huge school on the outskirts of the city of Paris. And what it was like a vocational school. And the idea was for those kids who weren't allowed to go to school during the Nazi occupation, give them a chance to get to school, okay? So I decided to go to, there was the electrical engineering school, there was the mechanical engineering school, and there was the school of dress design, haute couture. Well, I elected to go into the electrical engineering school. It just so happened that the principal of the school felt that here's a whole bunch of young men and women and teenagers who have had no life. So he hired this one woman whose job was to create a club from the 3 different schools to get together and mingle and she started asking for volunteers. So she went to the 3 schools, and I volunteered, and we were about 20, 25 kids who volunteered originally. And we had a meeting, and of course, the boys and girls. I was just so happy. This is going to look pretty good to me. Okay. Anyway, just I'm going to make a long story short. We got to be close to each other. And as time went by, I was about 15 years old when I first saw her. Then by the time I was 18, she was 17, we were pretty much in love with each other. Now we're in 1949, and in November 1949, my dad gets in the mail, because he had applied as soon as he could, he had applied to the American Embassy in Paris for a visa to come to the United States. Now we're in November of 1949, and he gets in the mail, congratulations, Mr. Middleberg, you can come and pick up your visa. He waited 4 years for that doggone letter. And my father he's elated, beside himself. We're going to America, we're getting out of here, okay? Now I have a problem. I am now 20 years old, and I made a promise to this lovely lady that I'm going to marry her. How am I going to do that if I'm leaving? I'm going to live across the ocean. So I tell my dad, okay, you and Victor, you go. I'll come later. My father says, oh, no. The 3 of us never separate again. Wherever we go, we only go the 3 of us, okay? But my father knew about that girl. So he said, I know what you're talking about. So here's what I'm going to make a suggestion to you. If a year from the day we leave to go to the United States, you're just as much in love with her then, a year later, and if she, a year from now, still cares enough for you, I promise you we will do everything we can to bring her to the United States. So I went to this lovely, beautiful young woman, and I tell her that my father's she was not only beautiful, but she was very smart, very intelligent. She says to me, how can I stop you for the opportunity to go to America? I will never forgive myself for holding you back, because I love you and I don't want you to go. And I know a year from now, I'm still going to love you. It all depends if you're going to still love me. You go, and we'll see what happens a year from now. Well, my dad he kept his word. I came with my father and my brother in March of 1950. In June of 1951, she came. We got married here in the United States. We got married. And the end result is that I have 4 children, 2 sons, 2 daughters, 11 grandchildren. So my story does have a happy ending. Unfortunately, we had 57 years of a beautiful romance of a marriage. Really an unusual, beautiful romance of a marriage. And about 5 years ago,
What happened to your brother Victor? Where is he?
I'm sorry. My brother Victor, 16 years ago, he passed away. He had a bad heart. And the only thing that could save him is for a heart transplant. And it just never happened.
Did he marry?
Oh yes, I do have nephews, 3 boy nephews from his marriage. He married, and he had 3 sons. And they married, and they have children now. Yes. Oh, yes. My wife was fond to say that this family that was created here was her revenge to Hitler. I thank you so very much. I really appreciate your attention and your questions. And I hope I perform a service for the community.
We thank you.